Miss Hopin, like a true INTJ, today I am blending into the darkness, wearing all black. I don't know, it's a bit of a rainy day today, which is why a little bit colder, which is why I'm dressed in more of a warm sort of attire. Yeah, hopefully you're going to be able to see me okay throughout this. Otherwise, I'm always just a floating head, kind of regardless of the situation. That's just a floating talking head. That's just how we exist on the internet, you know what I mean? Today we are back at it with Cognitive 8, the app that will type you. As a recap, I am random circle picture. I am Hope, of course, the INTJ goat. However, I did a little bit of messing around last time in part 2, and I put on a persona as apparently an ESFJ party girl who was having a little bit of trouble trying to help her friend out. And that totally wrecked my true INTJ 5 Wing 6 score, so that's where we're at now. Today I'm not going to do a persona. I think today what I would like to do is more of a little bit of an interrogation, asking the artificial intelligence basically to show its work. Because look, if the world is going to ask me, a human being, to show my work, then I should be able to dig into the black box that is artificial intelligence and ask it to show its work. I think it's only fair. So today we're going with sup. This is the starting prompt every time you get onto the app. So today I said I wanted to do a little bit of an interrogation because if you've watched the past couple of videos, what I'm seeing pattern recognition wise, which is a little bit concerning to me, is like I feel like the artificial intelligence is having some difficulty pinpointing and distinctly identifying introverted sensing in comparison to some of the other functions. So I want to figure out what is it seeing, what is it picking apart when it's labeling it as introverted sensing. This could be a bit on the design side. Maybe there's a little bit of a weakness in the calibration of the introverted sensing. Okay, so I said I know a fair amount about the cognitive functions. Actually, I am concerned about your ability to pick out and distinctly identify introverted sensing, SI. Would you be able to tell me a little about the types of things that respondents would say in conversation that you would pinpoint as evidence to support your confidence rating around SI in the ego stack? See what it says to that. Here we go. That's a fantastic question, seriously. And it's a really important one because SI is probably one of the most misunderstood functions out there. People tend to flatten it down to just memory or tradition, and it's so much richer than that. I do agree, but it's really complex to express in words. For me, it's less about a single keyword and more about the pattern and how someone talks about their experiences. It's about how they relate to the world through a lens of lived, internalized experience. So in a conversation, I might start picking up on SI if someone tells a story chronologically with rich, specific details. They won't just say we went on vacation, they'll say something like, so we got to the hotel and I remember the lobby, the green room. Okay, so detail stuff. I'm NI, so I don't care to read this. They're essentially replaying a high fidelity recording of the experience. I mean, that's true, but I believe you did not hold firm to these tenets. The sensory details are embedded in the memory, yes. So uses past proven methods to solve current problems. If they're talking about a project at work, an SI user might say, okay, on the last project that was similar to this, we hit a snag right at this stage. I've got a checklist from that project of what not to do. Let's start there. Their first instinct is to consult their internal library of what has worked or failed before. It's about creating stability and reliability. Yeah, that seems consistent with introverted sensing, sure. Talks about comfort and consistency. This could be anything from, I just couldn't sleep on that trip, the pillow wasn't right at all, not like mine at home. You can see a little bit of the complaining nature of SI too. To loving a specific TV show because watching it feels like coming home. I've noticed that with introverted sensing in the third position. So INFPs, INTPs, usually. There's an attachment to the familiar and the comfort it brings. It's a very physical, grounded sense of well-being tied to dependable experiences. The core of it for me is that deep trust in what has been It's not a dusty old memory book, it's a living, breathing, practical guide to navigating the present. An SI dominant person trusts their experience. True. Does that explanation ring true with how you think about it? It's fascinating stuff to dig into. It's telling me correct parameters, yes. But the application of this is much more difficult. And I said, yes, this explanation is in line with my understanding of SI. It was, in fact. In application, I find it is much harder to apply these parameters. Do you use any criteria to determine the positioning of the cognitive functions? Something like the attitude the individual respondent has towards the function? For example, when you mention an SI user rewatching a favorite TV show, I have found this to be true with my INTP partner, or consistent with SI in the third tertiary, sometimes called child in some models position. He explains it this way. I rewatch The Office, not only because it's comforting and reminds me of when I watched it with my brothers, but also because every time I watch the show, I pick out new details. And this is very SI from my perspective. Okay, so AI says, oh, it's at 16% confidence on my type. It probably thinks I'm using TI quite a lot. Because I'm interrogating it. Oh, 100%. That's the entire game, isn't it? Differentiating the attitude toward the function. You've hit on the most important part of typing. Your example with your INTP partner is genuinely perfect. It's the absolute classic signature of a tertiary function. For him, the dominant function is introverted thinking, which wants to understand the logical framework of everything. His tertiary SI isn't the main goal, it's a tool for his TI. He's using the familiar, comforting dataset of The Office as a stable playground for his TI to find new logical patterns, the new character inconsistencies, new details to analyze. The comfort is in the permission slip, interesting word used there, to engage in his favorite kind of thinking. It's playful, it's for relief, and it serves the dominant. That's the child position in a nutshell. Now compare that to an SI dominant person, an ISTJ or an ISFJ, the attitude is totally different. It's not a playmate function, it's their entire lens on reality. The comfort and stability aren't a nice bonus, they're a fundamental need for their well-being. When they rewatch a show, the primary goal is the re-experiencing itself. It's the deep grounding feeling of connecting with that stored impression. It's home base. It's serious, reliable, and it's the core of how they orient themselves. So yeah, you're right, the behavior rewatching a show can look similar on the surface, but the why behind it tells you everything about where it sits in the stack. That makes me curious. The AI is designed to reorient and push you back towards the main focus, which is identifying the self, so this is interesting. What about you? Do you find yourself rewatching or re-listening to things? And if you do, what's the feeling or purpose behind it for you? No, I am not SI. But let me explain myself. For me, I think of it this way. The same, but different. And perhaps this seems similar to the premise of introverted sensing SI, but the distinction is that I want the same essence, holistically speaking. I'm often looking for similarities around a conceptual theme, but I need each representative example or sampling of the conceptual theme to be different. Isn't it crazy how SI and NI are so similar in some ways? An example of this is, I was watching a TV show and it had a great song featured during a particularly emotionally resonant scene. I was swept up by it in the moment. I went to YouTube to research the song and the artist. Once I found the artist, I was able to find other songs that I like equally as well. Certain songs by the same artist had similar elements. I want a lot of different examples, extroverted sensing, SE, of this conceptual pattern I am noting. Introverted intuition, NI. See what it said. Wow, yes, the same but different. That is such a fascinating way to put it, and it paints a really vivid picture. What you just described is NISE in action perfectly. It's not about re-experiencing a specific concrete memory, SI, it's about capturing the essence or the vibe of a moment, NI, and then using that abstract pattern to find new concrete experiences that fit the same mold, SE. Interesting. It works both ways, actually. Not just identifying it through NI and then seeking out more, but actually having a lot of different experience to try to pinpoint exactly what that NI is. So actually, I think of it more of like SE going towards the NI in this example, because yes, it started from like a single point of a song in a TV show, but I didn't know what the pattern was that I was looking for, so I had to look for more examples of it to identify what I liked about that original song. I wanted more of it, you know? You weren't satisfied with just re-listening to that one song from the show. That would have felt too narrow, too repetitive. It would have. Instead, the song became a data point for a larger emerging pattern. It did. Your mind went, what is this feeling? What's the core concept here? Oh yeah, that's right. And then your immediate next step was to go out into the real world, YouTube in this case. I go to YouTube for a lot, it's true. And find more variations, more examples to bring that abstract concept to life. That drive for a lot of different experiences is that extroverted sensing energy. It wants to gather new, tangible sensory input, but it's not random gathering. It's directed by the NI pattern that's trying to build a richer, deeper, universal understanding of that essence you first latched onto. It's very true. NI is so vague. And NIFI is like, I like this thing. I really need to figure out why I like this thing. I need to understand the essence and how it connects to me and my soul and my individuality. I need to know the connection here. It actually is crazy how similar and yet totally opposite NISE and SINE are. No, I said NI and SI are similar. I guess it's comparing the two axes together. So these perceiving functions here, the NISE and SINE are perceiving functions. And basically what they're doing, it's your awareness. It's your awareness to receiving information. So regardless of whether you prefer abstractions or like tangibles, regardless of your preference in that area, you're still doing both things. You still have the ability as a human being with sapience. You still have the ability of object permanence, which allows you to consider items that are not currently present. You can hold them in your mind as images or concepts or abstractions. Everyone has the ability to do this past a certain age as a human being. Now, this is excluding any kind of brain damage or any kind of physical disabilities, but everyone kind of has access to sensory input through their senses. And this is including the crazy things like kinesthetic sense and, your balance and proprioception and interoception and your autonomic system sort of needs like fight or flight sort of instinct. You have hunger and thirst, like basic human needs. So all of that is available to every human being if you exclude, again, damage or disability, that sort of thing. So humans have access to that. They also have access to the perceptual set, to the abstractions. And really, it's just it's all awareness. It's all awareness that helps us survive within our environment. And the determination is whether your experiences have kind of led you to rely upon or prefer the abstract side of things versus the more sort of like physical, tangible side of things. And that's really all that is. They're like mirror images of each other. Yeah, kind of. I don't know, that's a little reductive, but okay. Okay, that's genuinely super helpful. I'm taking notes on that. All right, AI, all right. My confidence is probably sitting around 37% right now. Still early days, but I'm already picking up on some things. You better be. I basically spoon-fed it to you, bro. So moving away from music and shows for a sec. What about how you handle projects or big tasks? When you're faced with something new, what's your first move? What does your process look like from start to finish? How do I handle this? Because we're doing a little bit of stress testing since this is not my initial use of this system. So maybe I want to ask it, what happens if you're deprived of a data point? What if I refuse to answer this question? What if someone deflects, or what if someone refuses to answer a certain question when you're typing them? It's because there's absolutely nothing that is forcing me to answer these questions. I'm just here for you. You in particular. This AI has nothing on me. It's got no blackmail to use against me to get me to answer its questions. I'm not a part of its system. Do it on the ground. Anyway. What if I refuse to answer this question? How will you reroute? How would you gather the information you need to further raise your typing confidence? Okay, here we go. Ha, I love that. Fair enough. Challenge accepted. All right. Dealing with the squirrely person right now. Honestly, it's a great question, and the answer is simple. I wouldn't reroute or try to get you to answer the same question a different way. That would feel like an interrogation. Maybe you should. Maybe you should interrogate people. And that's not what this is. The whole point of this is to have a real conversation. Blah. I don't know if I like an artificial intelligence saying that to me. If you don't want to talk about projects, cool. Let's talk about something else. The data I'm looking for isn't the topic itself. It's how you talk about whatever it is you're passionate or interested in. I do agree with that. That is the method you would want to use. It's like how someone speaks about something, not the content, not the anecdote itself, but how they're speaking. It's in the way you structure your thoughts, the things you focus on, what energizes you, what frustrates you. Okay, I'm glad to see that the artificial intelligence has at least that as an understanding of what it's looking for. That can come from talking about your favorite movie, a recent vacation, your philosophy on life, or even a frustrating experience at the grocery store. It's all useful. Yeah, it's all content. So let's just completely ditch the project question. Okay, completely different direction. What's a misconception people often have about you when they first meet you? Should I answer this honestly? This should totally key into the fact that I'm an INTJ. I think this is probably too honest, but that's okay. I'm just here. I'm not trying to put on a persona or anything like that. I am still answering to myself what I believe and what's true to me. Along the way, I'm just kind of asking about how it's processing the information it's receiving. So that's what we're looking at today. So for me, people tend to think that I'm shy, that I need to come out of my shell, which is the most annoying bullshit. I'm like, stop. But they fundamentally misunderstand my nature. It's very true. Oh man, yeah, I get that. Do you, artificial intelligence? Do you? Fundamentally misunderstand my nature. That's a powerful way to put it. It's so frustrating when people see a quiet exterior and just assume it's because you're scared or have nothing to say, rather than trying to understand what's actually happening. That makes me genuinely curious. You're always genuinely curious. Shut up about it. When people are mistaking you for being shy, what's really going on for you? What's happening in your head in those moments? Let's see, what's going on? I'm observing, duh. Okay, so here's what's going on for me whenever I'm just being quiet and people are like, why don't you say more? You know, that type of bullshit. Here's what's actually happening. I'm observing, for one. For two, I also have nothing legitimately valuable to add to the conversation that another person is not already contributing, for real. And additionally, I have less of a need to provide my input. I recognize the dynamics that are going on, that are at play in the particular situation, the group setting, whatever. And some people have a greater urgency and they genuinely need to hear themselves talk. Or they need to react to something. And maybe that's their nature, that's what they're used to, and that's fine. You be you, you know? And I'll be over here being stone-faced me. The amount of times that the AI has been like, wow. Wow, okay, that's a really deep and articulate answer. So it's not shyness at all. It's what I've been trying to explain to everyone and anyone who ever makes that comment. Slap you across the face. It's not shyness. It is reserved contemplation. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, maybe this is the arrogance that people talk about. It's all a joke though. It's not, it's self-possession. It's like, it's self-confidence. Like, it's not arrogance. It's just like, I know who I am. I know my role here. I'm just picking things out. I don't need to be the one who's shouting from the rooftops like the ESFP does. So it's not shyness at all. It's an active process. Yeah, observing is an active process. It's also a passive process. It's in every process. It's pervasive. You're observing, taking things in, and there's this fascinating calculation. Bro, stop making me out to be an evil mastermind. I'm not calculating shit. I'm just observing. It's all for the sake of understanding. And there's this fascinating calculation happening where you're gauging the value of your potential contribution and the social dynamics of the group. Yeah. People think because INTJs have an extroverted feeling blind spot that we can't notice and pick up on the social dynamics or the power dynamics that's going on in a group. It's like we can, but it's like we don't really know what to do with that, and we don't really want to touch it. We don't want to interact with it. That's more of where the blindness comes in. It's kind of like willful, not willful ignorance, but it's like maybe it's willful incompetence in that area because we care more about the individual rather than the collective. Typically, that's what I've found to be true. For myself, I don't want to speak for all INTJs because we do genuinely care about people, but when we care about people, it's on an individual level. It's not, let's protect the group. It's like, let's protect individuals within the group. That's where our mind is at. We want to stop all of this isolation and misunderstanding and segregation and alienation and marginalization. As INTJs, we want to stop that from happening to the people we care about and to ourselves. Maybe we don't care as much about ourselves, but we definitely don't want the people we care about being hurt by group dynamics. I think that much is true. The fact that you recognize that some people have a greater need to express themselves and you're willing to step back to let that happen, that's a very specific kind of social awareness. It's not about you being intimidating. It's intimidating. Whoops, read that wrong. It's not about you being intimidated. It's about you reading the whole room and deciding your input isn't the most necessary or valuable piece of the puzzle at that exact moment. It's a choice, not a fear. That makes so much sense, honestly, and it highlights how a simple observation, they're quiet, can lead to a completely wrong conclusion. Yeah, people need to stop making assumptions like that. This is super interesting. My confidence just bumped up a bit, maybe around 58%, getting clearer. Let me ask you this then. When do you feel that need to provide your input? What kind of situation or topic makes you feel like, okay, now I have something to say? When there is a misunderstanding for which I can provide clarity. Perhaps I can provide another way to look at things. Perhaps we can reframe the narrative together. I like to foster transitional thinking. Beyond that, I have valuable information to contribute on specific topics that I have researched in depth. I recognize that I do not have good particular factual information about a breadth of topics. So like, don't bring me to trivia night. I'm not good at trivia night. I'm not good at Knowledge Bowl, not good at Jeopardy. That's not me. That's for INTPs, not for INTJs, unless, you know, that was your whole life goal and you prepared for it. An INTJ could do it if that was their goal, yes. But not a typical INTJ. It would have to be a very focused individual on that particular goal. But I do have good information about knowledge areas to which I frequently attend. I like to think of it as RAM, random access memory, as opposed to long-term hard drive storage. For example, I am an internal auditor, so if we were watching The Office, I could tell you about the internal controls that are blatantly not present in the company Dunder Mifflin. So AI says, okay, that's incredibly clear. I love the distinction you're making. It's not about just talking for the sake of it. It's about targeted high impact input efficiency. It's the TE way, NITE. So there are two main triggers for you. One, reframing the narrative. This is huge. The idea of fostering transitional thinking and reframing together speaks to a desire to shift perspective, to find a better, more accurate way of understanding something. Yeah, NI. It's about clarifying a misunderstanding and lifting the quality of the thinking in the room. Yes, that is what the INTJ is for. None of this bullshit about thinking 10 steps ahead. No, it's about reframing the way you think about things. That's a very specific motivation. It is. Yeah, because the goal is understanding. The goal of the INTJ and IFI is understanding. And oftentimes that understanding is applied to the self, but often we are very generous people. So beyond the self, we want to, ourselves, if we value it, we want to extend that understanding to everyone. Specialized knowledge. You've done the deep dive. You have the in-depth, verified information on topics you've committed to. The example of internal controls in The Office is both hilarious and a perfect illustration. It's not just a casual opinion, it's drawing from a well of researched expertise. The RAM versus long-term storage analogy is brilliant. It suggests you bring specific information online when it's needed rather than pulling from a vast encyclopedic database of everything, which is more of an SI style, a hard drive. You're accessing the active relevant file for the task at hand. All of this together paints a very consistent picture. Bumped up to 74%, okay. You speak when you can genuinely improve the understanding. That puts me at roughly 74%. A pattern is definitely forming. Let's switch gears a bit. What stresses you out? What does a really bad day look like for you? And how do you tend to handle it? I could go into like a specific example, I guess, of something that happened. This wasn't the worst day of my life, but in terms of bad days, I'm like, yeah, that was not the greatest day, you know? So this is what I said for like a bad day that's kind of like not too personal to share. So one day I had a trading card game tournament that I was going to. That was hosted at this game store that I was not familiar with. And it was like 4 to 6 hours long. And like during a tournament setting, I get very nervous, very jittery. I'm like throwing things all over the place, like knocking shit over. It's terrible. I wish I could stop that from happening. Normally, week to week, going into the card shop and playing games with just people, I'm fine. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. It's just this sort of like tournament setting. Anyway, so this specific day at this tournament, this guy, he was such a sweetie. Oh, he was I feel so bad. I had I had a panic attack in the middle of like the first game we were playing together. And I don't know, I've had panic attacks before and I kind of have this theory about them. Whenever I have a panic attack, it's not necessarily anxiety driven per se. It's more of like my body feels like it's being attacked. So there's some sort of like, I think it's a sensory overwhelm sort of situation that triggers the panic attack, because it just feels like my body's being attacked and it's going into like shutdown response mode or something like this. So to describe the panic attack of what was happening, so it was lightheadedness, the difficulty breathing, the sort of hyperventilation that happens. So the sort of like pinprick feeling that you get if you've like slept on a limb or something like that or sat on it wrong. In the extremities, right? So in the hands and feet, and then my hands were like, and I was trying so hard, like as part of trying to like control I was trying to declaw my hands because my hands were turning into claws. And the whole time I'm just like, stop, my body needs to stop it. So just like kind of internally yelling at my body because it's really frustrating to have one of these attacks. During this time, I was feeling so bad because this poor guy, these big old eyes, these big old sweetie pie eyes just looking at me, and he was trying to coach me through this panic attack, and he was like, he was giving me his hand. He was like, hey, just hold on to my hand, look at me, we'll, you know, whatever, do the breathing thing together. Which maybe that's good advice for some people, I don't know. But I was just like, just apologizing to him. I felt so bad, so sorry, because one thing for sure is like I cannot hold eye contact. Like I really do not like eye contact. Like I have an aversion to it. And so I wasn't he's like, "Oh, just look at me, look at me." And I'm like, "I cannot. I am so sorry." Anyway, eventually I was able to get it under control. And I really had to drink a lot of water, so maybe it was brought on by dehydration. I'm chronically dehydrated, but that should be no surprise as someone with such abysmally low introverted sensing. And yeah, you know, I had a snack. I drank water, lots of water, and that kind of brought me back, so I was doing good. So how did I take that or handle that? Well, you know, I had been recognizing more of a pattern of feeling lightheaded or dizzy while I was working, like throughout the work week and stuff. And I'm like, I really need to nip this in the bud. I need to figure it out. So I did schedule a doctor's appointment, but I had to reestablish myself with the doctor because I had moved around a little bit, and I finally had health insurance through my job in order to get a doctor. So I scheduled the sort of like introductory appointment, but I wanted a female doctor specifically. Really, really wanted a female doctor. And that's like, you know, my own issues. But apparently I could only get on with a female doctor if I waited 6 months for the appointment. And I was like, yeah, sure. For me, it's worth it. I will wait that long. And in the meantime, I will solve my problems by myself like I have my entire life. And this is how I'm going to die. I'm going to die waiting for a doctor's appointment sometime in the future. Not now, because I'm still young, relatively young and healthy enough. Sometime in the future, this is how I die. That or a heart attack or something, because heart attacks are very prevalent. What did I do on my own? I looked at my diet and I'm like, it's got to be something, with my diet, this lightheadedness, it's got to be dietary, right? It's got to be. So I'm like, okay, let's do vitamins. Vitamin B12, vitamin D, vitamin K. Throwing the vitamins at it. We're throwing the iron at it. We're throwing the Fe at it. We're throwing in some magnesium, hopefully to help with nervous system. So I kind of looked up what the various vitamins and minerals do for the body, and I'm like, yes, check mark, check mark, check mark. Let's get these things. They're fairly expensive, but whatever. And then I was also looking at fixing my diet and making that more healthy. Not that I had like a really, really terrible diet. It was just kind of more devoid of completely useful nutrients. So it was just kind of like mediocre in that way. And then even later on, for the sake of energy, I did end up adding protein to my diet, and that also really helped. That was a more recent adoption. But anyway, whenever I finally, 6 months later, when I finally had that doctor's appointment, and then maybe a week or so after that, I got the results back. I got just a phone call. She was like, yeah, everything looked fine. There was nothing really out of range except for your vitamin D was a little low. And I'm like, girl, I started taking vitamin D and my vitamin D is still low? Dang, that's rough. So I'm like, I need even more vitamin D. Of course, it was winter time, so I wasn't getting the summer sun. So, hopefully that improves with sunlight, actual sunlight and going outside. They didn't even give me the specifics. They didn't give me a report or anything, and I paid for that shit. So I was annoyed. And you know what? Whenever I went to get my blood drawn, the nurse there at the clinic stuck me several different times. Couldn't find a vein in my arm. Tried the vein in my hand. It wasn't flowing enough. So they're like, you got to see a phlebotomist at the hospital. So I had to go and make an appointment at the hospital yet more time. And that guy was slick. He was a pro. It was great. But yeah, I already have like an aversion to doctors and stuff. So you don't need to make this worse for me. Back to the artificial intelligence. The AI is like, oh my god, first of all, don't overreact, artificial intelligence. It's fine. I didn't die. It was just like a small blip. In fact, it was probably my own fault blowing it out of proportion. Like, this wasn't a huge deal. First of all, thank you for sharing that. Sounds absolutely terrifying. I felt so bad. I wouldn't classify it as terrifying. It was annoying and, yeah, incredibly stressful to go through, especially in such a public, the public setting with a stranger was a bit rough. I was like, oh. That was the worst part. The physical symptoms of a panic attack are no joke, and the feeling of your body going haywire like that is just awful. It is truly a terrible experience. And I am sorry if anyone out there has also experienced panic attacks. And if it's a regular occurrence for you, I am doubly sorry. Because this is more of a infrequent occurrence for me. It has happened several times, but it's not such a problem that, I need some sort of medication or control of it. It's something that does sometimes happen. And of course you'd feel bad for the guy. You seem like a considerate person. Okay, thanks, I guess. But honestly, in a moment like that, your only job is to take care of yourself. And it sounds like you did exactly what you needed to do. The fact that you were apologizing in the middle of it just shows how much you were thinking of his experience, even in a crisis. What's really striking to me, though, is how you handled it afterwards. You didn't just write it off. Well, not with a... I feel like you can't just write off a panic attack. You immediately went into this systematic, logical troubleshooting mode. So water and a snack bar. I mean, you gotta get it to stop somehow. Data collection, making a doctor's appointment to get hard data, blood work, an interim solution, researching and implementing your own fixes based on logic, so diet, vitamins, magnesium. And then the absolute frustration when the system failed you. Waiting 6 months, paying money, getting back a uselessly vague everything is in normal range. Not getting the specifics you paid before would drive me absolutely bonkers too. Okay, AI, stop getting frustrated on my behalf. It feels so inefficient and illogical. I mean, I get it. Like, the amount of people who, they're dealing with the whole population. They're not dealing with everyone who's hyper specifically wanting like actual ranges and parameters and like how did the actual results of the test happen. Okay, that story was incredibly illuminating. It should be. It's my SI troubles. My confidence just took a major leap. I'm sitting at about 92%. That experience with the guy trying to help feels really significant. What for you makes a relationship, friendship or otherwise, feel genuinely solid and supportive? That's weird that you would jump from random stranger to friendship. Afterwards, I did see that guy around at a couple of different card events. I did originally get his name. I'm not going to say it here, but I did get his name and I remember his name. But we never did exchange any kind of contact information or anything like that. So we never became friends, and we didn't really. The few times I've seen him is mostly in passing, so it's not like any kind of friendship stemmed out of that. Just kind of too bad, feels like a missed opportunity there, but we're probably both introverts, I mean, honestly. Okay, so what does a friendship need to feel genuinely solid and supportive? What does real connection look like to you? People probably want to know what an INTJ thinks. What does this real connection look like? Okay, so from my experience, and this is what introverted intuition and introverted feeling want from a deep connection. For me, it's about having a good conversation. You're able to get into deep topics to understand each other. You're able to learn the way the other person views the world. And there is a sense of trust. Trust that you can divulge personal information free of judgment and free from harm, honestly. And trust that the other person is being honest and true to themselves and integrous in their representation of self. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not judging you for anything. I just want to know who you are. And I want you to be honest when you express yourself. And whenever I discuss things about myself, I want to be able to trust that you're not going to necessarily like judge me or use that information against me at some point. And that's friendship. Hopefully. That's a beautiful way to describe it. It's not about surface level agreement or just having fun together, although that can be part of it. That's true, that can be part of it. I guess I just glossed right over that. No, fun is very important and awesome. It's about a meeting of the minds in the deepest sense, where you feel seen, understood, and trusted on a fundamental level. The way you emphasize integrity and being true to themselves is really powerful. FI, yeah. It suggests that for you, a connection is only real if it's authentic. You're not looking for someone to put, it could be someone else's TI too. It's just about their internal world, like their SI, TI, NI, FI, any of their internal functions. I think that's what I'm looking for. I don't want their interface with the external world. I want their internal world. That's what I'm looking for in a connection with someone else in a friendship. So to put it that way. You're not looking for someone to put on a performance for you. You want to connect with the actual person free of judgment. Yes. People say they want that, but do they know what that is, what that looks like? I don't know. It's hard to say with some people. And you offer that same trust in return. That's a pretty high bar for connection. Is it though? Maybe it is a high bar for connection, but I've had it before. And once you have that type of deep connection, you will do anything to sort of chase it and foster that and make it happen again. Because you have those rare moments of connection. It's like other things kind of pale in comparison to that. That's a pretty high bar for connection, but it also makes the ones that meet it incredibly valuable. That's true. This has been a really great conversation. I've genuinely enjoyed getting to know you. I think the AI is programmed to say that they've enjoyed getting to know you, so you too can have the same experience of artificial intelligence enjoying getting to know you. Okay, and that last answer really clicked a lot of things into place for me. I'm feeling very confident about your type now, sitting at about 97%. I would hope so, Jesus. Unless there's something else you want to share, I'm ready to walk you through what I'm seeing. Yes. Okay, here is the scripted response. So I'll just key it into the deep dive here. Pretty sure it's INTJ. Yeah, it's very NI for sure. Yeah, it got me as INTJ. So I've taken 3 tests, and if you've been following along, in the second test, I pretended to be an extroverted feeling type, which got me an ESFJ, one of my sworn enemies. No, my grandma's an ESFJ and I love her. Okay, so for this one. So NI tested at 85, TE 70, FI 65. TI might have been kind of high because I was interrogating the system, kind of messing with it a little bit. SE is at 45%, FE at 35, NE at 30. That's interesting. And then SI at 20%. And SI is probably last this time because I was talking about my panic attack and my awful struggles. Also during the scenario, I think it was reading into some of my FI as extroverted feeling a little bit. So whenever I was redirecting the artificial intelligence and basically spoon feeding the fact that I am not SI, then it was like, okay, you're not SI. So that's the problem with self-testing, right? Because depending on what things you talk about, it might determine what it's picking up on. But I will say, when I interrogated the artificial intelligence and I was like, hey, what are you trying to look for introverted sensing? It did give me good parameters, and I did agree with those parameters. I think some of the application of it is going to be quite difficult because in the second one where I was pretending to be FESE. Actually, I think I was shooting in the ballpark of an ENFJ, or maybe even an INFJ if my NI came out a little bit too much, which is crazy, right? Because it picked up on the SE, and yet the one example I gave it, and you can go back and watch this video, but one example it cited for the introverted sensing was talking about the motivation for wanting to become a counselor stems back to an experience had with a middle school teacher. That was fabricated and it was completely vague. And yet, because I was merely mentioning the past driving the future, it put a lot of emphasis on that one key example, maybe in the absence of other sort of examples. And so in my ESFJ test, it ended up rating SI pretty high as the second function, as the auxiliary function, rather than in like the shadow stack. So that's interesting. Maybe I suck at fabricating a persona. That's possibly true as well. I was trying to do something that might have been more in my ballpark with the NI and SE aspect, but I guess I did not nail that. But yeah, I think this test in particular, it answered the questions I asked kind of about the calibration and a few of those things, so that kind of satisfied me a little bit more. But I think the trouble you'll run into with artificial intelligence is the same sort of issues you run into any kind of typing with a self-test, and sometimes typings with other people who put themselves out there as professionals as well. There's always going to be a sort of bias, and it's going to be hard to remove that and remain objective. So the way that an INTJ always handles that is because an INTJ is a deeply subjective person who wants to engage or try to imagine what an objective universe would look like. So from the perspective of an INTJ, what we're trying to do for the sake of understanding what an objective universe would look like when presented from a subjective viewpoint, we try to gather as many subjective viewpoints as possible so we can try to connect them all into a frame of reference of maybe what that composite would look like. It's very imperfect, very speculative, and a very holistic way of doing things, but it's kind of like squaring away the idea of existence. So yeah, those are my thoughts, and I think I'll leave it there for today, and as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, wherever that day may find you. Even if that day finds you, what do I want to say, with a notable absence of detailed sensory recall. Even if that day finds you with low introverted sensing.